Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about something called a climatogram, also known as a climate diagram. So as you guys should know, the climate refers to the long-term conditions of a particular area, and usually, like we've been talking about the past couple of days, that could be a particular ecosystem, or in this case, we're going to be talking about different biomes today. So when we talk about long-term weather conditions, usually we're talking about two factors. The first would be average temperature, and the second would be average precipitation. So if we notice, the average temperature is written in red, and that's very helpful because you guys probably haven't seen a graph like this before, and it's nice because the red actually matches with the red on the graph. And so if we look on the left-hand y-axis here, our average temperature is measured from negative 30 degrees Celsius to about 40. So as a reminder, about 22 degrees Celsius is room temperature, so around 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so when we get up to 30, that's around high 80s there. And so around 10 would be actually quite cool. That would be around 50 degrees. All right, so if we look on the right-hand side, we have average precipitation written in blue. And so these bars in blue are going to represent the average precipitation. And notice the precipitation is measured in mm or millimeters, so that's for every month. So as a reminder, if we're using the metric system to measure, a centimeter, 1 centimeter, contains 10 millimeters. So all those little hatch marks between the 0 and the 1, between 1 and 2, each one of those is 1 millimeter. So again, for your reference, if we're looking at about 100 millimeters, that would be equal to 10 centimeters of rain, 200 would be 20, 300 would be 30, and so on. Okay, so let's take a look. If we're looking at the average temperature in New Orleans, Louisiana, you'll notice that it stays fairly warm all year. And we see that there is an increase in the temperature peaking in our summer months. So we go from January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And we see that our peak temperature is usually in July, and it's fairly high still in August and September. Now, if we look at the average precipitation, and if we were to kind of draw a line graph just to show the relationship over time, we see that the amount of precipitation does fluctuate. We hit low points in the fall, and there's a good amount of precipitation again in the summer months. All right, let's take a look at one of our biomes. So we'll take a look at the tropical rainforest first. Okay, so in Brazil, which is south of our equator, we have a tropical rainforest habitat across a lot of the country. And so let's take a look at the average temperature first. And what do we notice about this relationship? What happens over time? So you guys should notice that it's fairly constant. We do have minor fluctuations in the temperature, but it's usually up in the 85-degree range, somewhere around there. And if we look at average precipitation, we see that there are definitely high points and low points throughout the year. So we see a lot of rain starting in December and then into January, February, March, and April. And then during the summer, the precipitation is a little bit less. So next we're going to look at a desert. And I want you guys to predict quickly, what do you think the desert climatogram would look like compared to the tropical rainforest? So how would average temperature be the same or different? How might the average precipitation be the same or different? Okay, so we're going to look at the desert in Yuma, Arizona. And so we see that they actually have probably a good amount of fluctuation in their temperature, maybe more than you were expecting. However, we do notice that it does stay fairly warm throughout most of the year. So again, if our 22 is kind of our benchmark for room temperature in the high 60s, low 70s, we see that for a good amount of the year, from about April to September, even into October, it's above that temperature. And what we should notice, which is very characteristic of a desert, is that our precipitation is really low. So less than 10 centimeters every single month, less than even 50 centimeters every single month. We have very little rain, which is obviously characteristic of a desert. Next, we're going to look at a habitat that is the habitat or the biome that we live in, which is called a temperate forest. And so this data is taken from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is fairly similar to our area, with the exception that we're not right next to the ocean in Philadelphia, but we are part of a temperate forest. All right, so what could we say about the average temperature? Is it high? Is it low? Does it fluctuate throughout the year? What happens here? And then now I want you to tell me, what about the average precipitation? So we can see in Philadelphia, in this temperate forest, we do have fluctuation throughout the year. So we have peak temperatures in the summer months, and then it's cooler during the winter months. We should also notice that precipitation is fairly constant here, so it doesn't change a lot throughout the year. And last, we're going to take a look at a tundra habitat. Okay, so the tundra is a habitat that's typically found up in the Arctic region. So you can see Bare Alaska is quite north on a map if you were to take a look. And we can see that their temperatures over the year are pretty low compared to what we've seen before. And what do we notice about the amount of precipitation that they get per year? Precipitation is also very low in the tundra. So what's interesting is that tundra habitats are kind of similar to desert habitats in that they have very little rain throughout the year. However, if you look at the average temperature, the average temperatures are obviously much lower in the tundra. However, there are also Arctic deserts that exist, and so they would be fairly similar to this graph, but probably a little bit less fluctuation in the temperature. All right, and so if you guys have any questions, as a reminder, please come see me either in the Google Meet this week, which will be tomorrow, and I will post the time. And otherwise, you guys can always email me with your questions. All right, have a great day.